if you don't know me, my name is Haya and I'm a medical student at UConn. I wanted to offer you my congratulations because if you're watching this video, you probably got an offer from the medical school and now you have your interview. So this video is going to be talking about the MMI, or the multiple mini interviews. This type of interview is common in the UK in a lot of medical universities. It involves several stations from 6 to 8 depending on the medical school, and each station tests a certain scenario or a question, and you usually have 8 to 10 minutes to answer the station. Some universities also give you a clipboard to jot down your ideas and to prepare, and you're also allowed to take it with you inside. This year, because of the pandemic, most of the MMIs and several interviews have been moved online. To be honest, that may be a bit daunting, but I think you should use this fact to your advantage. Because the fact that it's online means you don't have to travel anymore and you don't get nervous about missing your train or not being there on time, and doing it at the comfort of your own home is just sort of reassuring. Make sure that you have a stable connection, good lighting, and a good background. Personally, I'm not a big fan of blurring the background because I feel like it's a bit distracting, so make sure you have a nice, neat background and good lighting as well, because you don't want it to like not be very clear. And make sure you have a good internet connection. Get used to the software beforehand just to make sure I don't have any glitches. Personally, when I was doing my interviews, I wasn't living in the UK, so I did a lot of my interviews online, and it is not as daunting as people think it is. Maybe wondering how to prepare. Personally, the whole interview experience was very fun for me. I really like to go to interviews. In a way, it's your moment to shine. So it isn't that difficult if you prepare. First, I would definitely advise to look at the university websites, because each university that you're applying to is different, and they might have some useful information on their website about what they ask about in the MMI. And also, the Medic portal, I'm going to link it down below, has helpful information about each university and describes what each university requires from the interview. So I'll definitely link it down below, and it was definitely really helpful when I was reading it. Second, you need to know these 4 terms, the 4 pillars of ethics. They are autonomy, which means the patient has the right to decide what to do for themselves. Second, it's beneficence. Third, it's non-maleficence. And fourth, it's justice. So like I said, autonomy, the patient has the right to decide for themselves. Autonomy, like autograph, so your own autograph or your own signature. So that's how I remember autonomy. Beneficence, which means that the doctor has to act in the patient's best interest. So the way I remember it is beneficence, best interest, so the 2 B's. Third is non-maleficence, and I remember Maleficent, and she was like evil, so I tried to remember that non-maleficence means you have to not be evil to the patient, or in more simpler terms, do not harm the patient. So anything you do has to not harm the patient. And finally, justice. And justice is an important one, especially in the UK, because it's the idea of sharing the resources among the patients and making sure that you're allocating them equally among everyone. So in a way, it's looking at the larger scale of medicine and looking at it from a society perspective rather than a one-on-one perspective. In the interview, they will never ask you to define these terms. They'll never ask you what is justice or what is non-maleficence. But it is important that you are very wary of them and that you use them when you're answering your questions. You have to have a clear understanding, so if they ever ask you an ethical situation, you know how to answer these questions and bring them on. Third, it is really important, and I can't stress this enough, that you guys read The Good Medical Practice, which is written by the GMC. So this is it, The Good Medical Practice. One of my professors says it's literally the Bible of doctors. So give it a go. It's not very big. You can find the PDF version online. And basically, it talks about the duties of a doctor registered with the GMC. And you might think, okay, well, I'm still just applying to medical school. Why is it important? It's important because universities are looking for students that are already familiar with these personality traits and already have them. And therefore, when you read them, it's important because you'll be able to show that you have these personality traits while you're answering the questions. Finally, a last preparation tip. If you really want to do a lot of thorough preparation, I would really advise this book. So this book, it's called Medical School Interviews, and it is a very, very helpful book. It's not that big, it's about 400 pages, but it talks about panel interviews, multiple mini interviews. It gives you the history of medicine, it gives you the history of NHS. It's a really, really helpful book, not only for interviews, but if you're just, like want to know about how the healthcare process is like in the UK. It's so helpful, and I still basically every university has a different style of MMI with different questions, but overall some common questions that always show up in MMIs are: one, they ask you about your personal statement, so they try to dissect it and try to see what your work experience was like and ask you any questions about it. So make sure you actually know your personal statement well and you know what you wrote in it. So for example, if you wrote that you read this book and this book helped you to make your choice, make sure you actually go over the book or at least read a summary. Second, a very common station has to do with role play. Basically get an actor or an actress and you have to go through a scenario with them. So it might be something like Breaking Bad news. So they're the patient and you have to tell them something bad has happened, whether their family member has passed away or, for example, they have a bad test result. So the role play scenario would be you asking the patient, and you have to be very empathetic and sympathetic, and you have to try to go through it in a logical manner. A third common question that they ask you about is you have to critique a consultation between a doctor and a patient. So for example, they're going to make you watch a video online, and basically the video is of a doctor asking a patient some questions and basically going through a consultation. And you have to decide whether this consultation was a good one or a bad one. And simple clues to help you decide is whether, for example, this consultation was carried out in private, whether the doctor was sitting on the same level as the patient and actually talking to them, whether the doctor was empathetic, whether the doctor had his phone on silent. Make sure to know the really important steps in giving bad news and giving a consultation. Another common question is a question about ethical scenarios, where basically they give you a situation and you have to assess the ethics. And usually in these questions there's no right and wrong answer as long as you justify your reasoning. Another common question that they ask you is usually about data analysis, and they give you a table or a chart and ask you a following question about it. In such cases, make sure you look at the title of the graph, make sure it's labeled, make sure there's a legend. So it's those little things that actually make a difference. General tips about the MMI. The first one is my most important tip, and I think this is the benefit of having an MMI interview rather than a panel interview, is that if you mess up in one station, forget about it and move on. It's good because every station has a different examiner and they don't know that you messed up. And so your chances of still getting into med school are still high because you have so many stations, and if you fail one or not do as good as you expected in one of them, it is not the end of the world. So that's why when you finish a station, even if it was good or bad, forget about it and move on. My second tip is prepare but don't memorize. Remember guys, these people are examiners and they've done this millions of times and they know when someone memorized, and you don't want to be unauthentic. You want to be authentic and you want to answer from your heart. So make sure that when you're preparing at home, you don't memorize a script, but instead you answer the questions in a thorough way, adding anecdotes and adding your own touch to things. Finally, my last tip for you guys is smile and introduce yourself. Physically, when we were doing the stations were separated by this cardboard thing. So when you enter the station, you're seeing the examiner for the first time. Smile, a smile goes a long way, and introduce yourself. So I'd be like, hello, my name's Haya. I would offer my hand if I felt like they would take it, but now because of COVID and obviously you're doing it online, you don't. Fake it till you make it. So if you really look confident and you feel confident and you try to relax your nerves beforehand, you'll do great. So guys, that is all for me. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you found the tips and tricks helpful. Please comment down below if you guys would like a model MMI. So for example, a sample station whereby I answer using my work experience, and maybe you guys can get some inspiration on what it's like to actually answer a question in 10 minutes time. Thank you guys so much, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Dun, dun, dun.